Very cool. All right, give it to me straight. Since you've been on the show, how has your life changed?
In so many ways.
You can't even walk down the street anymore, right?
Literally on the plane, I had to sign autographs. I got bumped to first class, you know. It was Southwest.
Live from Las Vegas, focus on FinTech through a party the only way we know how, with a focus on FinTech. From the conference floor to the hotel bar, innovation continued to dominate the conversation. Who is driving it? How is it growing? And at what cost? So sit back, relax, and hear a few words from our main man, Eric Hazard. And well, me.
Well, I want to focus on innovation. I feel like we have a lot of people here because if we're at Money 2020, we might as well.
People's mindsets towards innovation. When you think about innovation, it's all the combinations of it. We've got heads of innovation at major banks. We've got FinTech companies that are either providing the innovation or enabling it. We have the venture capitalists that are funding it. We have the investment bankers that are going to take these innovative companies and take them public. Like, we have the entire ecosystem of innovation completely covered in this.
Well, that's great. I mean, it would have been silly for us not to be here.
So we're at Money 2020, and it's a big show for FinTech companies, and Data Sears is a FinTech company. How do you see the path forward for FinTech companies working with financial services companies?
So we are kind of at a junction right now, right? There are people who are going to adopt the innovation and work with the fintechs, and people who are going to try to be the fintechs, right? And you have to make a decision whether you want to go this way or that way. And I think going and working with the fintechs and partnering with them for innovation and technology that they're doing is key, and it's very important because you can't do everything yourself. You cannot reinvent the wheel.
Banks know that it's all about the customer experience, but that experience is changing continuously. The expectation from a customer is higher and higher, stimulated by Amazon and Google and all these B2C companies. They want to see exactly the same behavior from a bank, but they are not getting it.
The consumer is learning their behavior from other points out on the internet, and yet the banks have to try to get as close as they can to that. But given their world of having very high value transactions in a very virtual world. So they're responding to consumer demand, but their ability to do that is dependent upon their own innovation and the innovation of many outside companies, like our companies that we invest in, providing technology to them.
I talk to all of our bankers and I say, well, I don't do banking. That's not my core. I do data. And you do banking. That's your core. So we have a good synergy. Let me do all the innovation and you get the best of the best and not have to worry about staffing internally.
Innovation.
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 Eric, we got this really good interview.
Wow!
What can I help you with?
So finally, I can have my question answered. How can I pay for a cup of coffee?
You can pay virtually anyone in the U.S. from your mobile phone or computer.
One of the things that we're seeing just really exciting is around data these days. You know, if you look at, I think I read a stat in the Wall Street Journal recently that 90% of the world's data has been created in the last year. And I think the innovation is going to come around data and data management because there's so much of it. And so I think you're going to see really interesting, cool companies that are able to harness technology in order to manage this data.
When I think about data, I may not think about innovation because to me it's the bits and the bytes, the ones and the zeros. How do you innovate? What does innovation mean to you?
So I will start that with a quote by George Bernard Shaw. He says, you see things and say why. I dream of things and say why not. And that's innovation right there. When it comes to data, there is so much innovation happening in the data space. And I live by that quote. It's like the Google search bar. Before search came along, nobody would have thought that there could be a box. You can type whatever you want in that box, and it'll actually tell you about it.
Yeah.
And that's the world we live in, right? There is no world today without that box. So we have provided that box for business data now.
Wow.
So you actually have a box where you can go and search for business data, and it will give you insights of what's happening in your platform. So that's innovation in the data space. you have to almost conform to your user, right? You have to understand what the user wants, how they want it, when they want it, and then be able to provide it to them rather than having to train them on how to use your system. You should be receptive enough that I will give it to you in whatever way you want it. And that according to me, is innovation.
Okay, this has been fun, but I think it's time for me to talk to a banker.
Talk to a banker. I am happy to notify a bank associate to let them know you require assistance.
Hey, how may I help you, Eric?
Oh, of course. Now this is the real interview. This is the head of innovation.
I'm glad you got to meet my boss, Pepper. So we define innovation as doing something differently that creates value. If you want customers to fall in love with banks again, come back to that philosophical premise of what we're here to do and how we're here to serve, and we want to serve customers when, where, and how they choose, in whichever platform they want. And if it happens to be with people, great. If it happens to be self-service, fantastic. So from a banking perspective, the technology, the artificial intelligence, the platforms, etc., if they can deliver a much more self-directed, at-scale customer experience that takes out a lot of this sort of the annoying, redundant, generic interactions that are associated with banking, so that can speed up time, serve more customers at scale, more delightful, so then the human interaction can be much more higher value.
Everything related to payments is on a timeline.
Yeah.
So it's all time series, right? So that kind of has to be now or never. You can, if there was fraud and I told you 90 days later that something had happened, you don't care about it. It's gone. You lost the money. You want to know now or before it happens. And that's how we are shortening that timeline constantly. It's a work in progress, right? So we literally go from, okay, it used to take this long, now it takes this long, now it takes this long, to someday all of this intelligence will be available real time. And it's just a cost play, right? I always say that money is inversely proportional to time. The more money you spend, the time reduces because you have more capacity and data is coming out fast now. Okay. And so you have to have that nice balance of what can you live with and what is the amount of money you want to spend on it.
Regional banks look at themselves as, we don't want to be the leaders, we don't have those deep pockets to go and innovate, but we can be fast followers. Mm-hmm. And I think the power of fintechs helps them get there.
Is that what they're doing? Are the regional banks looking to meet the customer where the customer is going, and that's how they're innovating?
It's all about following the trends. Nowadays, most of the new clients are all millennials. So millennials want the convenience to be able to bank anywhere, anytime. Mm-hmm. And that's what all banks, be it regionals or the nationals, they all want to make sure that they can meet the convenience for the customer. And regionals are doing the same thing.
If I'm a regional bank and I think about millennial customers and how I want to be attracting millennial customers and developing services for them, I'll look to a fintech. How would I even find the right fintech to partner with?
One of the biggest trends we see with millennials is they're looking to build trust. For them, trust is a big thing.
And actually there's a lot of data that millennials in particular actually trust technology more than they trust humans. Humans aren't nearly as empathetic as we would like to believe we are.
They still want mobile, right? They still want everything digital, but they actually have a really big need to engage with human beings at the right time, in the right channel, with the right insight to deliver to them.
When you think about banking, it will be completely dematerialized. What does this mean? In the future, you see bank as a platform or banking as a service. You no longer need real estate buildings. I think there's a generation change. Maybe my generation and older might still go to a real bank, but probably the generation under 50 is used to all the new technology and will use it when they want it, where they want it, on whatever device they want it.
More and more banks are putting money into funds and saying, let's bring fintechs here, rather than us spending that money trying to build something. And I think it helps the general public as well, because we are all working towards the common goal, is more convenience to the consumer, safer payments, faster payments, and get more creative.
I think the consumers are leading the pack. But what I think is interesting is it's not about the form factor of payment. It's about the ease of use of paying with that brand. And how does that get reinforced through the life cycle of my interaction with that brand? So can I use whatever payment I have? Is my checkout seamless, frictionless? do they recognize me? If I have an issue, what is the follow-up to that? And do they recognize me again so that I'm more willing to go back and purchase again? And we can see, working with retailers, all the different places where we can touch them along the way as Wirecard powering that engine behind the scenes.
Are there any cons to innovation? Can you take it too far? Okay.
Absolutely. So for a startup like us, right, the cons of innovation are cost, because it directly goes to R&D, right? You're actually churning and trying new things and they fail. And how many times did the light bulb have to be invented before the working version came out, right? But that's why I believe in perseverance. So those negative things, actually I take them as positive, as long as we don't make the same mistake 2 times, right? If you make the same mistake over and over again, you're not paying attention, and that's a big con. But if you're willing to learn from your mistakes and go forward, I think you can turn your cons into pros, and every step you take is going to be so much more further towards your goal.
There you have it. FinTech really is more than a fancy way to pay for a cup of coffee. Like Ed Waite said, if fintechs and established banks continue to persevere, the upcoming generations of homebuyers, merchants, and consumers will supply the data to drive products and services into a much more digital, ease-of-use financial world. Will Gen Z continue with the millennial trend, or will history repeat itself with classic teller banking and cash deposits? Only time will tell. But either way, we can't believe we made it here, and thank you for watching this special Money 2020 episode of Focus on FinTech.
So we did it.
We did it. Well,
Money 2020. 11
in the books.
11 interviews.
Wow, it feels like 1,000.